All right, she's one of the best first basemen that OU softball has ever seen. She's also the head coach at Mississippi State. And we're talking about an SEC series between Oklahoma and Mississippi State. Samantha, how does that feel? Where you coach now, where you play, this is an SEC series this weekend.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, we've been excited to have them join the conference and just knowing the prestige of the program and what they bring. And we've played them the last 4 years, and that was on
Mhm.
purpose. And it was, we want to continue to challenge ourselves to be the best, and to do that, you got to play the best. And also, really for this moment, so that when we did face them during conference, it wasn't something new for us. So we're excited about it. It's weird seeing them with an SEC logo on
Yeah.
their after being such a big part of the Big 12, but excited for what it brings to the sport and how it continues to push forward, not just SEC softball, but across the country as well.
For those that don't know, Samantha Ricketts has, I mean, one of the more amazing recruiting stories on how she got to Oklahoma, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But you mentioned, like, we're used to seeing you in Mississippi State. It had been a non-conference game. So it's nothing new for you to face Coach Gasso. But what was that like the first time? Like, that's your head coach. That was your boss at some point as well. So what was that like the first time facing Coach Gasso as a head coach? And then is it still kind of unique, even though that you've done it now for the past several?
Yeah, I think it's always really special. She's my biggest mentor, and I've learned so much from her, continue to even now, as a coach in the same conference, but just very thankful for everything that she provided for me, as well as, the program, her family. I mean, they're just such a huge part of my journey. My family's as well, with
Mhm.
Keilani and just what they provided for all of us. But thankful for her. It's always really fun, and just knowing how competitive she is and how competitive I am because of her, I think it makes those games just a little bit more special, because I just want to get after it and give them the best possible game that we can.
You said that Patty's your biggest mentor to the extent that didn't you call Patty before you even called your family when you got the head coach?
I did. Yeah, she was a big part of the head coach interview process for me here at Mississippi State. And I had been assistant for 5 years and had an opportunity to interview for the head coaching job. And she really, I mean, it was probably once a day, if not multiple times a day, for that week
Yeah.
leading up to it. And went back for a second interview, and that's when I was offered the job. And I called her immediately because she jumped right into contracts, and you need this, this, and this. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, slow down. This is my first head coaching job. But just so thankful for her and what she's been able to provide, not just for me, but how she fights for women in athletics and in softball just across the country, everything from contract negotiations to salary, and how she pushes it forward. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned from her is to stand up for yourself and not be afraid as a woman to ask for what you deserve. And I think it's something
Mhm.
that a lot of young women have been able to learn from her, just from playing under her and just watching what she's done over the past few years.
All right, let's talk about that recruiting story I was just mentioning. You, of course, a California kid, committed to an in-state school at one point. That coach leaves, and now you're looking for your next school. And I would love for you to kind of tell, the entire story it is as it is, but Patty Gasso came calling, sent out her hitting coach, and you committed to Oklahoma and arrived at Oklahoma before ever taking a visit to OU, correct?
I did. It was definitely a leap of faith. And just when I grew up, it was didn't know a whole lot about the recruiting process. I was the oldest of four, and it was just something that was new for my family. And had the opportunity to commit to a Division I school very close to home, right down the road. I was gonna have to, take out student loans and possibly live at home at one point, but I
Mhm.
was just thankful for the opportunity. I wanted to play Division I ball, and only really had two offers to do so. And um, I think just the way it all worked out, when that coach who recruited me left and my recruitment was able to open up a little bit. Um, my travel ball coach at the time was also she also was a junior college coach in Northern California. And so she had some ties with Coach Gasso over a catcher that was supposed to go to OU, who ended up not that summer finding out she wasn't going to be able to go. So it really was just kind of, I think, perfect timing of Coach Gasso was like, "Hey, I need a catcher." And she's like, "Well, I actually have one available who just opened
Yeah.
up." And yeah, she watched me, I think one time Coach Dobson came out and he watched. And I just remember it really being the one time that I had to sit down and make an adult decision on my own. My dad specifically, my parents really were just like, hey, this is your decision. We're not going to sway you either way. Obviously, we'd love for you to stay close to home, but you need to decide what's best for you. And I remember just really saying, hey, I want to challenge myself against the best. What better place to do it? Had no idea where Oklahoma was, had to look it up on the map. This is right when college softball was just starting to really be
Yeah.
televised. And so I'd seen them a few times in the College World Series, but just taking that visit sight unseen, I'd already committed and signed the paperwork. And Coach Gasso wasn't even on my visit. My flight got delayed, so she had to leave. And it was just me and Coach Lombardi. And I'm like, where am I? Who are these people? But just so thankful for that opportunity that I had because it really just changed the course of my life. Um, and I was able to, I came in the class of 6 and they were all highly recruited players that had offers from all across the country. And then there was me who showed up a month before that was supposed to, stay home and go to a small school. But I think it just really continued to help me drive to work hard and be the best. And it's something that I've taken with me every step of the way of my career.
Did something happen with your dad's travel plans? Did you
Oh,
end up having
yes.
the first time by yourself, even without him?
Yeah, so we were supposed to fly out, I think, on that weekend, and our flight got canceled. And so it had to push back to the next day. Well, he had to work, and so he could no longer come with me for the duration of the trip. So
Man.
I ended up getting on a plane by myself. And this was a month before school started in Norman. So got on a plane. Coach Lombardi picked me up, and I just remember driving around like, where are all the mountains? Like, why is it so?
Well, you probably had a certain perception about Oklahoma, and maybe a lot of those were fair. But what was something about Norman, or just the state, or the people that you didn't know before, but once you got here, you really found out, like, oh, I really like this about the state of Oklahoma, Norman, whatever.
Yeah, I really didn't know much. My travel ball coach, she played at Oklahoma State back in the 80s. So I just kind of had
Mhm.
maybe a little bit of her perception and her stories. And I knew how good the softball was in the state. That was kind of the only thing I did know. But I do just remember how welcoming and how friendly everyone was. And that was I think just such a difference for me coming from, a big city in California where you could go a year and you never run into anybody you know. And you get to a
Yeah.
small college town where it's all about the Sooners and the sports across the whole state. And it's just seeing how everyone was kind of in your corner, had your back, would recognize you out to dinner or wherever it was. And it was just a really cool experience that I think for me really changed my perception to the point where I'm like, I don't ever want to live in a big city again. Like this is much more, I think, in line with what I enjoy.
When you think back at your playing time at Oklahoma, what immediately comes to mind other than that 362 career average, other 239 RBIs, which I think was a Big 12 career record at the time, and the 48 home runs as well. But if it's a certain moment or a certain game, what do you think about the most?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's definitely not the records, the numbers. I mean, I couldn't tell you what those were, but I think it's the people. It's the
Mm-hmm.
memories that you made with your teammates, your coaches along the way. And I think what made it so special and something that I continue to try and bring into my program is just how it was more than just the team. It really was a family atmosphere. And Jimmy Gasso was around as much as Coach Gasso, and her sons were
Yeah.
around all the time. And that's something that I think meant a lot to me being far away from home, just seeing how
Mm.
welcoming and how much her family was around the program. And, it's something that we do here as well. I want, we've got girls from all over the country as well, and I want them to feel comfortable. We've got my assistants' kids running around at all times and just a very family oriented program.
So you have this great career at Oklahoma, and then you're a GA for a few years in Oklahoma. So I'm curious what that was like in terms of a relationship with Patty, from a player aspect, and now, I mean, you're on the coaching aspect. How did that work out for you?
It was great. I learned so much from her, even as a player. It was really my sophomore year. I think I remember her coming up to
Hmm.
me and asking if I'd ever thought about coaching. And at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I think I changed my major 2 or 3 times. But once she asked me that and I kind of thought about it, I'm like, okay, that really makes sense. And I think from that moment on, kind of shifted what my career plans were. And even more so as a GA, she continued to pour into me from the coaching side. And we'd have maybe breaks between groups where she would ask me, okay, here's the situation. You're the coach. How do you handle it? And as a 22-year-old, like, I don't know. What would you do? But just an opportunity to really pick her brain and
Yeah.
continue to learn from the way that not just that she ran practices, but ran a program,
Yeah.
treated the people around her. Um, and it was especially I think, just a fun atmosphere because my sister was now a freshman on the team when I started as a GA. So I had 2 years with her, and I was really kind of given the task of, hey, we got to keep Keilani in line and make sure she's doing XYZ because she was such a huge part of that program from the
Mm-hmm.
minute that she stepped on campus.
I made an OU softball Mount Rushmore recently. Tell me this. I've got Keilani on there because I think she's the greatest two-way player in OU softball history. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. I think she definitely belongs on there. What she did, I think, for that program is just, I mean, amazing. And it's like you said, on both sides of the ball, and there have been some great, great players through there. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
what Keilani contributed on both sides, and I think it helped really drive the recruiting. There are a lot of players that wanted to play with Keilani, and then what her and that team with, Jessica Schultz, Brianna Terang, Lauren Chamberlain, with Shelby Penley, what they all did, I think brought in that next generation and what you've seen the last few years. And it just really kind of started what was, what is the OU softball dynasty.
Yeah.
So proud of her for all the things she did there.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, she's one of the four greatest players. I mean, maybe even a top three player overall in program history. And you may not have known that her first, freshman year, but you knew that she was going to be pretty good. And obviously, she's your sister as well, so ties to the program. How interesting was that for you, knowing how good of a player that she was? I'm sure Patty and the staff knowing how good of a player she was. Were you in on the recruitment? Did you help the recruitment? I mean, that would probably be a very interesting thing in your first taste as a coach, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was at
Mm,
the time. Initially, I think maybe her sophomore year, they were kind of watching her. Some schools were, and then it
mhm,
was okay. We're going to see how this big lefty develops. She's very young for her age. She started college at 17, but it was really her junior year when I think Keilani's recruitment took off, and now all of the top 25 schools were after her, and that's
yeah.
when I think it got serious. And it was, okay, Sam, you gonna help us out here or what? I'm like, I've been telling y'all she's gonna be good. Uh, but really, ultimately, and my parents very much kept it the same way my recruitment was. They wanted it to be her decision. They took her on her visits all across the country, and ultimately, I think with her being the youngest of the four and her being younger in general, she wanted to be close to family. And I think I was a big part of that decision, knowing that I'd be able to be there for 2 years with her. And she actually moved out of the dorm early and into my house,
Mhm,
just so that I could, that was a lot of pressure on her. It was a lot she was trying to deal with as a freshman, and just making sure that she was, doing the right thing. She's doing her homework. She's eating dinner, and that, just handling, I think, the pressure that came with her in that first year. I specifically remember Palm Springs, her freshman year, pitching against Washington, and she was getting hit. She was upset. She's at the end of the dugout trying to calm her down. And then fast forward the super regional, we go to Washington that year, and she was a completely different pitcher. Just the maturity and the growth that she had, even in her first year. I think because she had to take some of those lumps early on, and just the way that that coaching staff was able to mentor her, I think it just really shaped her for the rest of her career. But I think we all knew she was going to be special. She really didn't hit a lot that year, but I think starting her sophomore year on, they got her back in the box as well because she's going to contribute on both sides of the plate.
yeah, she did. I can't wait for this weekend. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's an interesting aspect to this series because Friday night's game is in Oklahoma City. How do you like that? Just as a coach and obviously just been around softball your entire life. Do you like that Friday night softball game in Oklahoma City?
Absolutely. Coach Gasso called me a few months ago and asked if we would be willing to. And I mean, there was no hesitation that we wanted to play there. And I think um, for us and for this program, give our players a chance to play on that field and to
Hmm.
experience what thousands of screaming OU fans against you is going to feel like. And
Yeah.
that's our ultimate goal, is to play in Oklahoma City in June. And so I think just to really get the experience for our program and to get our players that feeling of the hostile environment on the biggest stage in college softball, that's 100% something that we wanted to do. So we're excited for it. We're looking forward to being there. I haven't seen it since the renovations of the second deck.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
really excited to see what it looks like now.
Yeah. Well, looking at your team, it's hard not to start with Sierra Sacco. I mean, what a year having the average, the doubles, the on base percentage, everything else. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves when talking about her, but what really truly makes her special as a player?
Yeah, we go as Sierra goes. She's just been such a spark for us at the top of our order. And really with Sierra, she kind of describes herself as self-made. And she's one kind of honestly kind of similar to me, where her recruiting story it's just very unique. She wasn't recruited by a lot of people. She had one Division I offer coming out of high school. She went to start at Louisiana Tech, and then kind of had to bet on herself when she entered the transfer portal, just knowing that she wanted to compete against the big dogs. And all she's done is continue to prove why she is one of the best, even in the SEC. And she's a hard worker, she's competitive, she's fiery, and I think what she does and what she brings to our program is she elevates us in the best way. She
Yeah.
pushes her teammates just like the coaches do, and she wants to be a coach one day. And I just think that competitive fire that she brings just elevates everyone around her.
So if I were to ask you, like, what do you like just kind of about the makeup of your team? I mean, I don't want to answer this for you, but a lot of what she brings with that intensity, fire, it has that rubbed off on the entire team and maybe something that you really like about your team the most?
It definitely has. I would say with this team, more so than any team I've had in the past, they're a little bit more serious, just kind of in the best way.
Hmm.
Like, obviously we
Yeah.
like to have fun and enjoy the game, but they want to win at everything we do, whether it's a practice drill or in a game. They are pissed off if they lose something. If there's something on the line, they want to win. Um, and I just think she exemplifies that, and then the rest of the team really does as well. I think our shortstop, Kylie Edwards, is kind of the next year Sacco for us, but she's the same way. She is not happy if she doesn't make a play she expects herself to make. And they just have such high expectations for themselves in this program, and they want to win at all times. And I think it just continues to pour into the future with our freshmen and who's coming in. And it's been fun to see, over the course of the last 6 years, how this program's identity has continued to develop.
What have you seen from your pitchers in SEC play thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really doing a good job. They're competing for us in a tough conference to be a pitcher,
Yeah.
especially to be kind of the ace. And Raylan Chafin has had some really big wins for us to start the year. And another one that she's a 1 year transfer from LSU and was just looking for a fresh start. And I think we gave her the opportunity to kind of reinvent herself. And just we have so many players in our team, are just their stories are just so special. But when she got to Starkville, she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer really in her first week. And so for her to go through not only the process of transferring, but then the cancer diagnosis, and to get to this point where she's really kind of been our ace and our workhorse. I'm just very proud of her and her mindset, and I think that just bleeds into the rest of the team. Delaney Everett is another one that's just a fiery competitor on the mound for us. They really feed off well, and you're going to take lumps in this league. You're going to get hit hard, and it's all about, I think, how you respond. And I think they've both been doing a great job of that recently.
I've been seeing really good recruiting classes with your program. Of course, getting some nice players in the portal as well. But what's got you most excited? I know you're focused on this year, but what's got you most excited about the future of Mississippi State softball?
I think just the direction that we're going. I mean, having continuing to have solid years gets us better and better recruiting classes. Being able to build this new facility that we're now in our second year in, I think also helps with the recruiting.
Yeah.
But with us, it's a big part of finding the right fit, not just great players, but the right type of people and people that want to leave their mark on a program. And we take transfers. We don't take a ton. I think we
Hmm.
believe a lot in our development and in bringing in freshmen that are just going to get better and better over the course of their 4 years. But for us, it's really about, hey, I want to make sure when I leave Mississippi State softball that I've been a part of a team. There's something that hasn't been done before. And that's been a huge piece, whether it was our first super regional a few years back, our best ever finish in SEC play last year, highest ever rankings. And that's kind of the goal with this group is we want to leave our mark. We want to elevate this program to somewhere it hasn't been before. And those are the type of kids I think we're getting in here, the blue collar, hardworking ones that have something to prove.
What's your impressions on Oklahoma from what you've seen?
I mean, they're always going to be a strong, strong program. I mean, they're well
Yeah.
coached, obviously, and they do everything well. They're gonna hit, um, play great defense, and then just their pitching staff. I mean, there's so many options. And I think for us, it makes it hard to prepare for because obviously you'll see Sam Landry, but they have a lot of other really good arms in there as well. And just what's
Mm.
the combination? What order are you going to see everyone? But we know to compete against a program like that, you have to play clean in all phases. Like we have to have timely hitting. We're going to have to really pitch well against their offense. And you have to play clean defense because I think one thing I've seen throughout the years is they're going to take advantage of any little mistake. So we have to be ready to go and understanding it's going to be in a hostile environment where everyone's against us. And I think that's where this conference prepares you. We played in Tuscaloosa as well this year and kind of had that feeling a little bit. So we're kind of leaning into that of, all right, remember what it felt like with all those people cheering
Yeah.
against us. And we just got to make sure we continue to bet on ourselves and keep our focus on our dugout.
Last one. Do you say Starkville or Starkville? And I've never been. I've never been to Starkville, just driven through it once. Hopefully, we get to come out there next year. Tell us about the town and what's going on out there. I've heard there's some restaurants there.
Yes, the locals call it Starkville. It's definitely
Okay.
there's some interesting Mississippi pronunciations around the state, but Starkville, Mississippi, we're a town of maybe about 60,000 total when school's in session.
Yeah.
That includes the county, the city, and the student population.
Mm.
So definitely the smallest town I've ever lived in. But it honestly reminds me a lot of Norman, and it's
Okay.
constantly growing. We're getting bigger and bigger every year. Um, but just that small town, there's no professional sports in the state. So everyone's either a Mississippi State fan or an Ole Miss fan. And that's how Oklahoma was when I got there. It was before the
Hmm.
Thunder and all that. So everywhere you go, you know right away, like if someone's in maroon or if they're in the blue and red. And just makes it fun for our girls. You know, they can go somewhere after a game and they're going to be recognized for playing softball. And it's not just the football team or the baseball team getting the recognition, but the softball, the soccer girls, like they're just as important to this town. And I think in a town this small, the community really relies on the school, but vice versa. The athletics teams and the university really rely on our community to show up and support. And it's been fun to see that partnership and how they kind of work together there.
She's Samantha Ricketts. Coach, have a safe trip out here. Have a great time out here. Good luck, all of that. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.